Been a long time. A really long time. But finally, we have it in our hands. But is it as great as we've all been expecting it to be? That's open for debate. Hello everyone, my name's the Casa Puppy, and I'm really excited to say this, so let's review Final Fantasy XV. After a long conception period of 6 years, with the story being rewritten and the decision to make the game its own story, Square finally began development of Final Fantasy XV about 4 years ago. However, to many fans who have followed this project since the beginning, it feels like an eternity. And now that it's in our hands, we can't help but be excited. But at the same time, we also feel a bit underwhelmed. Why underwhelmed, you ask? Well, let's start with the story. Set in the world of Eos, we follow the adventures of Noctis, Gladiolus, Ignis, and Prompto. The four are on their way to Altissa in order to meet up with Luna Freya, Noctis' bride-to-be. But before the group could reach the city, a new trouble shakes the whole of Lucius with the talk of the main capital of Insomnia's fall. The news comes as a surprise to Noctis and gang, as a peace treaty was currently underway between Lucius and Niflheim. But the real goal of Niflheim was to infiltrate Insomnia and take the crystal and the Ring of the Lucii for themselves. When the ring escapes along with Luna Freya, Niflheim issues that both Luna and Noctis are pronounced dead, and the two's fate are quickly filled with strife and hardship. This is just a quick summary of the beginning of Final Fantasy XV. What was once a trip to Noctis' wedding soon turned into a struggle to retake Insomnia and put a stop to Niflheim. The beginning of Final Fantasy XV sets us up with a promising adventure, full of grandeur and excitement. However, as the game hits its mid-late game to early end game, the story seems to lose steam and becomes very standard and boring for a good while. The saving grace is that the final few moments rekindle that fire to begin with. But the story alone isn't the entire game. The characters are what basically become the pillars of any video game, and with Noctis, Gladio, Ignis, and Prompto, we have a strong main cast. Gladio is a Papa Bear type with no filter. He says what's on his mind despite the repercussions, and will attempt to straighten out the group at every turn to keep them on track without being too strict at the same time. Aside from his aggressive nature, he's also very protective, caring, and an overall huge soft-hearted man who does his best even in times of tragedy. Ignis is... well, he's like the mother of the group. He cooks, he drives, he strategizes. He's the core of the group and is heavily respected by all of the group. With his vast knowledge and experience, he's able to formulate plans on a whim and lead the party to multiple successes. But he's not perfect, oh no. He's very much reserved, and this tends to hold him back from saying what's on his mind unless the situation finally grows to a point of almost no return. He's a gentle spirit who wants the best for those he cares for, but his lack of assertiveness makes him all the more human. Prompto is our comic relief, but not in the traditional sense. He starts off goofy, but his attitude is easily something that one can relate to and allows for the players to grow quite fond of him. Prompto is basically the ray of sunshine who fills the group with light and emotions and keeps them from becoming too serious. Without Prompto, the serious and aggressive nature of Ignis and Gladio would easily become too much for Noctis and would cause undue stress. But Prompto isn't invincible. Though he may seem cheery, he has his own secrets that hold him back from expressing his true thoughts. His energetic personality is very much a shield to push aside his true emotions and to keep himself from breaking. He's a balance that is easily tipped depending on the situation. Noctis, the Crown Prince of Lucius, and more notably our main character, is actually the most surprising character. Despite his brooding and almost depressing fashion style, he's actually a very jubilant and carefree person. He exhibits a lot of emotion, and his personality is very go-with-the-flow kind of vibe. He's actually very enjoyable and realistic. He's happy when he's happy, he's upset when something troubles him, and he's not cryptic in the very least, which makes him a very relatable protagonist. Except that he can warp magically, is a prince, and all that jazz, but that's beside the point. The main cast is very well written, and kudos to Square Enix for making a cast that we can enjoy and genuinely feel for. However, that's where this ends. On the side character side of this title, little to almost no effort was put into the supporting cast. They felt like revolving doors in the sense that they come into Noctis' life, do their thing, and then they're never seen again. This makes it hard to really get attached to any of the supporting roles and is an oversight by Square. If they put half as much effort as they did with the main cast, I feel like the story and overall experience would have benefited greatly. One of the greater pieces of this title is the music done by none other than Yoko Shimomura, who is most notably known for doing the soundtrack for the very popular Kingdom Hearts series, and even some smaller projects such as Super Mario RPG. The sound of Final Fantasy 15 is very fitting. It's got this strong presence that filters itself into each scene with perfection. Be it the rustic southern sound when idling in Hammerhead, or the riveting and oceanic music when riding in the gondola in Altissia, the music fits accordingly. The theme of the game is told amazingly well through Yoko's vision, and I've yet to tire of any of the tracks from the game. With the exception of Stand By Me, the insert song made by Florence and the Machine. It's not a bad song, don't get me wrong. However, I feel that the song clashes with the rest of the soundtrack and doesn't complement itself in the title. But that's one song out of a large number of music. If I had to pick my top song, it would have to be Somnus. The reasoning behind this choice is quite obvious to any who have followed Final Fantasy XV's creation. This one song was the reoccurring thing throughout 13 verses and 15. It gave the fans a sense of nostalgia that they could hold on to, myself included. Now I know you're all questioning one major part of the game, and honestly, so was I. The gameplay is paramount to any enjoyable game experience, and to be quite frank, I have mixed emotions about the combat of Final Fantasy XV. The combat is played through Noctis. You control one character, and the others go to their own rhythm and try to work around your movements, most of the time. At your disposal, you have the ability to use all the weapon types in the game for Noctis, whereas the other three are locked to a specific few weapon types, which balances out the usage of overpowered weapons being equipped to all three characters, saving us a repeat of the monotony of Final Fantasy XII's weapon system. Your abilities are as follow. The ability to warp at whim to either a locked-on enemy or a warp point allocated by the game. The warp is Noctis' special ability, and as such, your party will not be able to use it as well. When warping from enemy to enemy, you'll amass a damage chain that slowly gets bigger as you combo properly. When warping to a point, you'll enter a recovery status that quickly refills your HP and MP. This allows you to plan strategically in battle as well, and ensure your safety in most cases, so learning when and where to warp is very beneficial. Outside of warping, there is also the normal weapons combat. You're able to hold down circle to initiate your weapon's set combo, which changes depending on the weapon in use, and this is your main source of damage. But spamming attacks isn't a very tactical idea, because the enemies don't stagger quickly and will respond in turn to the damage you give them. It's best to attack during times you feel it is safe to do so, or even when the enemy launches a blockable attack. The cool part about being strategic with battle is the parry mechanic. Almost every enemy has a blockable attack that you can capitalize on and parry in turn. This allows you to deal a large amount of damage and even possibly knocking the enemy into its vulnerable state, in which case it will stagger and fall over, allowing you a time frame to unleash hell upon it. But that's not all. This is a Final Fantasy game after all, and what self-respecting Final Fantasy title doesn't have magic? That's right guys, we have magic, but it's not a spell in a sense. Instead, it's a consumable resource that you create yourself through elemancy. You're able to mix and match between the elements of fire, ice, and thunder to create a multitude of spells with fire, blizzard, and thunder as your primaries. You can also mix in items together to increase its potency, add effects, or even change the type of casting the spell does, such as triple casting, quintuple casting, heal casting, etc. There are a boundless amount of customizable effects that you can unlock and explore, making magic much more unique and enjoyable. The downside to magic is that after using a spell, a low time will occur, barring you from bombarding the enemies with spells over and over, which is probably a good thing since when using spells, they linger and leave traces of the element behind, which harms all units standing inside over time. This includes your party as well, and if the entire battlefield was filled with magic, it's safe to assume that you'd meet your end quite quickly. One more part of the combat is the summons. Now this is both a very awkward and unique aspect to me. Summons in this title are as strong as you'd think they'd be. They're able to clear large hordes of monsters in a quick manner, and are massive in range, making them overpowered. The balance to this, however, is that these summons happen randomly, it seems. It may have a trick to it, but I've yet to find one that is completely consistent. But I find it to be a very good thing that the summons aren't actually a controllable force, seeing as they would completely overturn the balance in battle whenever present and would destroy the combat completely. Outside of combat, we have the large, expansive overworld. You travel throughout this land through either your trusty regalia or by chocobo, and are able to explore the many different areas and dungeons throughout Eos. What I find to be a surprise is how densely packed Eos is in terms of content. You have a lot of side quests that you can do to fill your time, and they pad the gameplay a good amount as you're moving along with the story, or even after you're done with the main storyline. And if you feel like you've missed something in an earlier part of the game, no worries, because the game's got your back. When you reach a certain part of the game, you're given the option to revisit past parts with your current level, gear, and other stats that you've previously acquired, allowing you to undertake quests and challenges that were otherwise outside your capabilities, making the game feel very free and accessible. The downside about this is that the overworld is basically only for side quests and doesn't really affect the main quest line at all. On top of that, there are certain parts of the game that you can't access the past and are cut off from the expansive land. But the game gives you an ample amount of warning before it thrusts you into this situation, so it's purely up to you when you're ready to undertake that leap. There's a lot more I could cover about the gameplay, but it's really something you need to experience for yourself to understand fully. So here it is. It's time for the pros and cons of Final Fantasy XV, so let's jump right into it. On the pro side, we have beautiful music, a large, glamorous open world, believable main cast, a simple yet effective battle system, and a straightforward storyline. On the con side, we also have lackluster supporting characters, confusing plot points that require mediums outside of the game, a boring and mediocre late mid-game to early late game, humongous loading screens, and missed opportunity to use the open world for main storyline. The game is a mixture of good and bad, and I think that's chalked up to its 4-year development cycle. And before you jump on what I just said, please bear with me as I try to explain this. Yes, Final Fantasy XIII Versus was the basis for this game, but the majority of it was created on Square's Crystal engine, which was fine-tuned for the capabilities of the PS3. And when the change to Final Fantasy XV occurred, one of the drastic changes was switching from the Crystal engine to the Luminous engine the game was created for and running on currently. The initial plan was to move the assets from one engine to the other, but when this occurred, a heavy set of issues persisted, leading for the team to completely abandon these assets and start the project anew, which caused for a lot of rushed work that we played today. What may have seemed like a 10-year project really boils down to less than 4 years of actual work that could be utilized and presented. And I have to hand it to Square Enix for doing such an amazing job with the little time and money they realistically had. I enjoyed this title a lot, and there's still a lot more for me to explore in just side quests alone and many secret dungeons. On top of that, Square is constantly working to improve the game further with fixes to certain chapters, balancing, and even new content on the horizon. From what I've seen, this game serves as a guidepost for Square Enix's future titles, and I'm ecstatic from what I've seen. Final Fantasy was an ambitious project, and though a lot of it was utilized well, and some not so well, I can appreciate the artwork that they've given us, and will definitely play this game in the future. But the question is, will you? Hey everyone, I'm the Casa Puppy, and thank you very much for watching my review on Final Fantasy XV. This was one of the hardest reviews I could have done to date. I tried to be fair on both sides, and I am pleased to say that I achieved what I set out for. If you like this review, please do leave a like and subscribe to my channel for future videos. And if you can't wait for a new video, maybe take a look at some of my older reviews. Until then, I'll see you in the next video.